Good morning. Uh, my name is Cesar Yok. I'm the founder of the Bronze Institute for Urban Systems, and I'm going to be doing this series called "The Question of Change." And I had an introductory video that talks about the question of change, and then why I started thinking about this series. So when I was in college, I went to the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, and then I was taking a global and the environment course. So that was the first time I was learning about global sustainability, climate issues. And that was in 1998. Climate change. That's when I was introduced into climate change. And when I was in high school, I did some research about the greenhouse effect. So that's one of the reasons why I was able to go to SUNY ESF because of that research that I was doing. When I was there, I believe I took the class in 1998, around that time. Yes. And one of the topics was what had to do with what are humans doing to affect their environments, and what are some of the things in history that tells you what might be some of the effects. And one example that was used at that time, it was Easter Island. So Easter Island, give me a second. So Easter Island, and then Easter Island near the Pacific Ocean. I believe Chile is one of the territories of Chile. Before it was by itself, it was an island by itself. So the island is known for these huge structures called Maui. Uh, the natives they erected or they put along the island. And then one of the things that was said about the island is it was probably settled between AD 800 AD to 100. And then it was Polynesians that went to the island in some form. They traveled more than 1,000 miles or a long trip to get to this island. And then the discussion was that in the lectures we're talking about the Polynesian they brought in rats when they had these canoes or drafts or whatever it was. They came in, and the rats were there, and then the island wasn't used to rats, and they never had rats before, so it was an invasive species. So the rats started eating a lot of these plants and trees. Trees couldn't grow, palm trees. And it was also said that a lot of palm trees were cut, millions of trees were cut, and this led to close collapse. It says here when I was doing some research and related uh, information, it says they wasn't really sure what time when it came in. It was 800 or to 200 AD. It says it's not clear how quickly the island ecosystem was wrecked, but a major factor appears to be the cutting of millions of giant palm to clear fields or make fires. It is possible the Polynesian rats arriving human settlers may have eaten enough seeds to help to decimate the trees. Either way, the loss of trees exposed the island's rich volcanic soils to serious erosion. When the Europeans arrived in 1722, they found the island mostly barren and inhabitants few. So that's what was said during that time. So they will say that that the islanders caused their own destruction, or they had something called ecocide, that they created these problems for themselves. They were not sustainable, things like that. Then, so I looked at another article, The Secrets of Easter Island, March 2002. That was later on. That was around the time that I was in school at SUNY SF. He says here the island population was too small, too primitive, and too isolated to be credited with such feats of artistry, engineering, and labor. You could hardly conceive how these islanders, wholly unacquainted with any mechanical power, could raise such stupendous figures. Those were Europeans. They're thinking about these structures and they say this natives couldn't have done this. Over the years, when I have read some historical books and things about colonization, it's similar thinking, like why, how come these people were able to do this here. I'm from Guatemala, so sometimes that's what happens too. It says like you have these huge structures and somebody else did it, right? So they don't put a lot of how you say like the natives could have done these things. But over the years, that has changed in the Mayan culture and in Guatemala. That was part of the Mayan civilization. But right now, I just wanted to go over these things here about how Europeans come to this place and say like, oh, they couldn't have done this. The natives, they're primitive. This philosophy, and that's why I wanted to talk about these things. You have philosophy, psychology. And that time, I was reading a book called Come Germs of Steel in 1998. So after I read that, and I said to myself, there were a couple of more reasons why these things happen. Is one has to do with philosophy, psychology, and religion. So some Westerners go to other places and then they say, "Oh, they couldn't have built these things. Somebody else did it." So that's what happened to the Easter Islanders. It says here in 2002 again, without trees, you got no canoes. So they say like, because you have all these trees being cut down, there was no canoes to be able to get fish, a fishery. It says, without canoes, you got no fish. So I think people were already starving when they were carving these statues. The early Moai for dinner, but these last statues have great curved bellies. When you reflect on your idols, it's an ideal. So when everybody's hungry, you make them fat and big. So that's what was said about the natives and the statues, things like that. And then I read another article. So I was going through different articles to see what they were saying, what happened on Easter Island. It says some scholars place the blame for changes on the island on humans. Geographer Jared Diamond illustrates this somewhat controversial opinion. It's about, I think, 10 years ago, I bought this book called Collapse. And in one of the chapters, they were talking about Easter Island. And they were saying that they caused ecocide, and we had to learn from what happened to Easter Island and see how it applies to our world today with climate issues, natural resource depletion, and things like that. So, and it says in that book, in short, the reason for Easter's initially severe degree of deforestation isn't that those seemingly nice people really were initially bad or improvident, careless. Instead, they had the misfortune to be living in one of the most fragile environments at the highest risk for deforestation of any Pacific people. Easter Islands make it the clear example of a society that destroys itself over exploitation, overusing, its own resources. So, so that's one of the things I read from Jared Diamond. Some of this, one of the book that I read years ago. But then there came more research, and it says that they were questioning this that the islanders caused their own destruction. They had their own ecocide, and that's why the population decreased. So, like I said, this is a question of change. So, to see why some of the latest information it kind of says something different about these things, about what happened. It says here, what happened on Easter Island again, and it says the statues that walked. So in some anthropologists, archaeologists, mainly anthropologists, were talking to natives, some of the people that were still there, and the descendants of the Easter Islanders, and they said like, no, they walked, the statues walked, and that was interesting too. Some archaeologists, anthropologists, what do you mean they walked? What does that mean? So a lot of times, this is what happens in archaeology and anthropology. In most books that I read at the bookstore, a lot of this information that it says proof is written information. Though there are anthropologists that use oral history, because a large part of a lot of human culture is many places didn't use writing, so they transfer information through the stories and tell the next generation of what happened to the ancestors, things like that. So some anthropologists were listening to they were saying, okay, so how did they walk? So they did some experiments and some ropes, things like that, and so they found some ideas as to what probably happened. It says because Easter Island is so remote, it had very little contact with other human communities for hundreds of years. The people there developed no immunity to the disease brought by Europeans. As a result, sickness who has spread quickly. Hunt and Lipper point out that the Europeans were probably unaware of the enormous effect disease would have had on the island's population. Okay, so now they're saying some of these researchers are saying that when Europeans contact, they will probably spread of diseases. That's what happened to other places that were colonized by Europeans. That's what happened in Central America and South America with the Aztecs. These diseases, and it was also said in the book called Contrams of Steel about disease play a huge role. What happened to some of the natives. So now they're questioning this, that it was ecocide, and then they were saying there was probably something else that happened, that it wasn't them that caused their own destruction. There was deforestation, there was rats issues, things like that. But something else happened that decimated the population. So this is Rapa Nui National Park. This is some of the information that was found the UNESCO World Heritage Convention site. So it's a UNESCO site. It says, according to some studies, the depletion of natural resources have brought about an ecological crisis and the decline of the ancient Rapa Nui society by the 16th century, which led to the decline of the spiritual transformation in which these megalithic monuments were destroyed. The original code of the ancestor was replaced by the code of the member, which was exceptional testimony that the ceremonial village of the Orongo located at Arowano Cow volcano. So now they're talking about like there was probably cultural changes, religious changes. So if you go to Easter Island, some of these huge structures are actually buried and they're around the volcano. So they said that there was probably a new religion, a new way of thinking, or ancestors, or these things, or where the structure should be located. So there was some research being done saying that they were not going to carve any more of these stone structures, and then they were going to put this huge structures and bury them around the volcanoes. Things like that were being said. They said, rethinking Easter Island's historical collapse. In 2020, more research was being done and more information was coming out what probably happened. And these findings drawing on new statistical methods and excavation work suggested that the Rapa Nui was not destitute when the first Europeans arrived. It is therefore possible that it was the newcomers from Europe who contributed to the island's societal collapse in the years to come. The new work is controversial, not everyone is convinced. But Di Napoli and his team are correct. The popular story Rapa Nui's decline, as described by Diamond, needs to be rethought and its heroes and villains reconfigured. Instead, the Rapa Nui has seen their own destruction prior to the European contact. It is possible that the people of the island may have been the victims of European exploration and exploitation. So there are more researchers questioning this, and there's more information coming out that the Easter Islanders adapted to the deforestation and they found new ways of agriculture, creating these things, or making their own food when there was hardly forest around. So they found a way to adapt to its new changes, to its topography, not topography, but more like the natural resources available there. So, and then another book, another article that came out in a journal. It says, for genocide to ecocide, the rape of Rapa Nui. So this article goes into questioning this book, Collapse, and all the research done. He said, while this theory of ecocide has become almost paradigmatic in environmental critic circles, a dark and gory secret hangs over the premise of Easter Island's self-destruction. An actual genocide terminated Rapa Nui's indigenous populace and its culture. Diamond, however, ignores and fails to address the true reasons behind Rapa Nui's collapse. Why has he turned the victims of cultural and physical extermination into the perpetrators of their own demise? This paper is the first attempt to address this disquieting quandary. I gotta pronounce these things correct. It describes the foundation of Diamond's environmental revisionism and explains why it does not hold up to scientific scrutiny. So, like I said, so this was happening everywhere. In 1998, around the time, it was more like, the coastline collapse. Easter Island is a cautionary tale of what could happen to us. Then people were questioning these things. They were saying something else probably happened. We need more research. We need more data. We need more information to say what probably happened. Outsiders blame for Easter Island's historic demise. So in Manchester University, professors there did some research, and so over the last few years, probably in the last 4 years, more information is being coming out saying that something else happened. It wasn't them that caused their own collapse. It says here, outsiders blame for Easter Island's historic demise. Rather than a story of self-inflicted deprivation, I agree with the view that substantial blame has to rest with Western contact. Ever since Easter Island's first sighting by Jacob Rockeben in 1722, visitors brought disease, pests, and slavery, resulting in the tragic demise of the local population and culture. There is little archaeological evidence to support the history of internal warfare and collapsed before contact with the outside world. Easter Island's 19th century history is sad one. It's a sad one. Slave race in 1862 reduced the island's population. A few islanders survived slavery and were returned home, bringing with them smallpox and other diseases. So this is another view. Like I said, this is not my opinions. A lot of times we I learned when I was in school is like provide some I say glossary and then bibliography. Some of this research, who said it, what was being done, who are the professors, where does the information come from. Some of them are professors, some of them are researchers. Most of them, the citations that I put here are researchers, professors that looked at this and said like, okay, something else happened. So then I wanted to talk about that. This is the question of change. It was like in that time, this was talked about, and then more information is being given, and more research was being done, and then you see that it's important to be open-minded about things and to be able to accept new information. They say like to rethink about these things, because I read, like I said, some things, or what happened to the Incas, to the Aztecs, to African cultures in other places. It's about this thing that Europeans and other people, mainly Europeans at that time, they go exploit, colonize, and then they decimate these populations, and then history says that something else happened. So there's some form of racism, prejudices, biases that has happened over time, and then sometimes it's not to blame I'm not blaming Jared Diamond or anything like that. I don't know where he got his information. A lot of times he has great bibliography and researches things very well. So it's not that I'm not blaming the author. It's more like I just seen that this new information, these things are changing as to what is saying about these people, about these native people, and also what can we learn about this story or what has happened to them. It wasn't ecocide. It wasn't them that caused their own destruction. They probably did a lot of deforestation, and like I said before, but they probably found a way to be sustainable in their own environment, and then something outside sources came in and it just decimated the population. Now we have to think about that for what has happened today. We don't live in islands here. Most of the world has been occupied by humans, so we have some contact with humans. There are some Amazon tribes there still living their own ways, things like that. So, and then we also have to be aware of this idea of being civilized. So recently, I was hearing that Elon Musk took some internet technology to some of these native tribes that had never seen these things before. Probably have had an idea that it existed, but they were never used it before. And then he took it over there to that tribe, and then slowly it deteriorated, according to what people are saying, deteriorated the culture. Like some of the things that they were doing, they started rethinking what they were doing with their lives and how the structure should be and things like that. So it's like, again, it's like, why are we doing this again? It's like this idea of civilization is happening. Like, with high technology is the way to go to be able to be sustainable. And then this comes down to Easter Island. It's a tale again. It's like the Europeans saying, "Oh, they don't have high technology. How come they were able to construct these huge structures?" Again, I keep seeing that in history videos. It's like, oh, the how come the how come the they say the Egyptians built these things, and they say, what was the way? What did they use? There was no way to get these huge stones there. It's a little bit of how you say a little bit bias, a little bit like ethnocentrism. Uh, we base the past on all our current situation, our current culture. People thought different. A lot of things were it's similar today. Family structure, how you feel, things like that. But it was more cultural differences, and it was more like I'd say religion played a huge role. It's more like not saying that they didn't have this huge technology, that they didn't have recent technology to be able to construct the structures. And I'm like, no, it's just be appreciative that they didn't use our current technology and they were able to construct these structures. That's the way I see it. It's like it's that their capabilities of constructing these things without having this idea that it should be high technology. There were probably other ways that they did it. Maybe it wasn't like moral in the way we see it now, but it's but not based it on today's culture and today's technology. It's the same thing with them right here, the Rapa Nui, that they didn't have these things. They didn't, so but they found a way to do it. That's the way I look at it. The ingenuity, the creativity. That's what I like seeing from these cultures. That you don't need meta structures or trucks and things like that. They had to be from a society that they believe in something and they came together and built these things. Yeah. So, but I don't fully know the story of the Rapa Nui. I just basing it on this current research, things like that. So, yes. So later on, I will talk about the Mayans and the Incas and the Aztecs, things like that. I mean, those civilizations, and probably it has some similarities with them here, and these natives and the Rapa Nui. I love history. I like seeing, reading about these things, the creativity and the ingenuity, and sometimes we don't appreciate what these cultures, these people did, because we base it on the scientific, view and all this technology that we have today. Okay, so thank you, and like I said, hopefully more people come in and start looking at these videos and start learning about these things. So I just wanted to, like I say, question or change to look at this thing. Okay, thank you. Bye.